Hello my friends, my name is Russell Wright. I'm from themezoom.com, and for all of my students who are watching this is to help you avoid some of the pain that's out there in the conversion or upgrade path from Windows 7 32-bit system to Windows 7 64-bit. For those of my friends that are using Macintosh, you just hold your tongues during this process, okay? Today we're going to talk a little bit about the 7 things to ask before actually upgrading from Windows 7 to Windows 64-bit. Okay? The first thing is, do you have enough RAM to make the upgrade useful? This is really coming from a question that happened to me. Actually, it's what got me into the entire mess. Is I noticed that there was more RAM available on my computer, that I actually had a slot that I could put another stick of RAM in, which would give me an additional 4 gigs of RAM with a total of 8 gigs of RAM. I thought I was on 64-bit system, didn't pay much attention to it because the laptop is fairly new, but lo and behold, when I put that RAM in there, I discovered that Windows could only access about 4 gigs of that RAM, and I'd spent that $90 for a new stick of RAM to increase it to 4 gigs for no reason. Really, in order to gain access to the full RAM, I really needed to upgrade my system to 64. Now, here's where things get a little bit hairy, is once you have a 32-bit system, there is no easy upgrade path. You actually have to reinstall your entire operating system. And that's the main thing that I want you to understand. So, I prepared some questions that you should ask yourself before you go to all that work. Do you really need a 64-bit operating system? Are you using applications like video that are memory hogs? Are you a gamer? Are you going to really make use of the extra RAM? And more importantly, we'll find that on the next few questions. Do you really have enough RAM, and can you upgrade with enough RAM to make your 64-bit system really that useful to you? Another example is if you're a content curator, like a lot of my students are. I teach content curation and other kinds of online marketing. You're probably going to want to upgrade if you've got the RAM available. Slow machines are really bad for content curators, especially if you've got multiple browsers open, even if you're using Chrome, which is fairly low, not too heavy of a browser. If you're doing a lot of video, you've got YouTube open and you're curating different videos, downloading videos, uploading videos. 64-bit system has really improved my multi-screen video suite, and I'm finding it very, very useful. So that would be a question, though, is like, if you're a work-at-home mom or you're a senior citizen working at home and you only open a browser every once in a while, this kind of upgrade path might not be so useful. Okay, and again, that's not saying that people working at home don't have more and more requirements. I'm just saying that if you're not doing a lot of crazy stuff online and you only click a few browsers open, you don't watch a lot of videos and this and that, you might not find the access. You might not use the 64-bit system, and if you can't add any more RAM to make it useful, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Next one is, do you have your system backed up? If you've made the decision to move on, make sure that's to upgrade the path 64-bit system. Do you have everything in your system backed up? Windows does have some instant backup and install systems available. I did not use them. You might want to get with your Windows, local Windows and Microsoft store. If you look at that, they have an easy backup solution. You can use systems like iBackup if you like third-party systems. You can also use things like Western Digital. Here's a simple Western Digital drive that I've got, and I backed everything up on that, as well as backing it up to the cloud. Also, make a list and check it twice. I want to point out, if you're my online marketing students and you're using things like RoboForm Everywhere, I want to put a red alert out that if you're using RoboForm Everywhere, you want to make really careful to make sure that your password and your username for your Robo Everywhere account is written down somewhere. If you lose that, the only way that your RoboForm Everywhere service department at the RoboForm Corporation can help you is to delete your account and begin again. Remember that. Fortunately, I did keep mine elsewhere on a piece of paper and the rest, but if you ever lose your RoboForm Everywhere master login, which is not the same as your RoboForm content, your RoboForm username and password, you will have no option other than to start capturing passwords all over again and delete years worth of password system stuff. Okay, so export your browser, your bookmarks, all this stuff. Make a list, check it twice, put it on a piece of paper, and then back up your system. Again, this is not educating you on how to back up your system, just saying you're going to need to learn that before reinstalling an operating system. For those of you who've installed operating systems, you know how much of a hassle that can be. Okay, so can you afford the $200? This is the upgrade path, folks. It's not the $130 upgrade path. You have to actually reinstall your system. So when you buy Microsoft 7, you're going to actually need to buy the 64-bit complete or full version. It's called Premium. Buy Premium, it's going to be $200. Can you afford $200? If not, you probably want to hold off on upgrading to the 64-bit path. This is why you really want to make sure that it makes sense. You're paying $200 for nothing if you're not using video-intensive, browser-intensive, kind of RAM-intensive operations on your system. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and look at question number 5. Are there any important drivers or unusual applications that you need that will not run on the 64-bit operating system? Yes, there are drivers, and some of these drivers are third-party device managers and other things that just for whatever reason have never found an interest in helping anybody on a 64-bit system. 64-bit, I believe, is the future. I'm not an expert on this topic. You'd have to ask to the rest of this. You'd have to ask the Theme Zoom software developers and programmers who are a lot smarter than I am about hardware. I think 64-bit is inevitable. So these are the things that you need to ask yourself. There are certain drivers that I'm not going to list here that do conflict and are useless on the 64-bit operating system. Check to make sure that your major softwares, if you make your living on a particular piece of software, make sure that that software is 64-bit compatible. For example, if you're using Avid 8000 video operating system, some of those systems might only be available on 32-bit. Now, keep in mind that most softwares run perfectly on 64-bit, but no 64-bit softwares run on 32-bit. So you have to upgrade. You can't really downgrade. Okay? So hopefully that helps you just a little bit. Now the next question, of course, Mac users, I decided to give you because I already know, I can already hear your comments on the emails. You guys are going to, some of my students, should you switch to Mac? Well, one of the things that you really need to ask, especially with the new tragedy, we have a friend of ours who recently visited us in Mesa at the Theme Zoom offices who's already installed the version 8 of Microsoft Windows. I'm not real excited about it, and there's some real challenges. Here's an article from InfoWorld, the Windows 8 tragedy, how Microsoft can avoid disaster. I plan on staying right here on 64-bit Windows 7 for at least another iteration of Windows. I do not want to go through what I went through when Vista was out. I'm not willing to face it. This is the first time with a new tragedy, Windows 8 coming out, I believe is a tragedy, where I've considered yet again having a Mac to back myself up on different things, just in case the world goes crazy. So hopefully that's a little helpful for you. I really want your transition to a high-powered video curation platform to be very, very easy for you. Those of my content curation and Theme Zoom students, this is going to make your integration and a lot of the other things you're using, which are very browser intensive, including our Kraken application, the last keyword application, and the Domain Web Studio application, much easier to use just because your system is kind of caught up to speed. I want you to have the fastest machine that you can if you're using PC. And that's all I have to say for you on this one. I hope that's been a helpful article. This is the 7 things to ask before upgrading from your Windows 7 32-bit to Windows 7 64-bit. Please do visit us at networkempire.com to learn some of the most advanced marketing and online social media and curation techniques in the world. My name is Russell Wright. I look forward to seeing you on the inside.